Whistleblowers within Jehovah's Witnesses have leaked the internal guidelines of Watchtower's public information department. That, combined with other leaked videos and templates, give us a chilling look at how the group's leadership manipulates the media, academia, and governments. All of that and nothing else, all on today's. Welcome to the show. My name is Jake. I think I kind of stole that intro from Comedy Bang Bang, weirdly, now that I'm saying it out loud. And thank you for joining us live. We have a in-depth discussion about something really interesting, and I think one of the most interesting looks in how bureaucratic and corporate the organization is, as opposed to something spiritually being led by God. And I am not alone, of course. First of all, we have our lovely chitters and chatters today. But I also have a very special guest, somebody who has done a lot of work exposing this particular department. Please welcome Mitch, aka Ron Pimo.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, thanks for being on the show today, buddy.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we have a lot of stuff to get into. And the first thing, I guess, as the springboard would be to talk about what is the PID? What is the Public Information Department? And to help us with that, they, in fact, have a mission statement. And that's not the right page. So let me pull it up. If you want to look at this on your own, actually, it is on that page, isn't it? Yeah. So if you want to follow along at home, the link is in the description to this document on avoidjw.org. And I might drop some other links in the description later for things that we talk about through this video. So the PID initiates and oversees all government, academic, and media contact work within the branch territory. This includes developing and disseminating accurate information about Jehovah's Witnesses on a regular basis. This is prepared by Watchtower branch people. The PID coordinates the gathering of content and experiences for use in outreach to the media and for internal purposes. The PID oversees the work of local spokesmen and assistant local spokesmen who are recommended by PID and appointed by the branch committee on a regional level. So, Mitch, maybe can you give us like a English translation of what that is for us normies?
Yeah. I think the most simple way to think of it is Watchtower's public relations department and spin team. So,
yeah, the spin team. That's a good way to put it. And is it safe to say, we have Larchwood in the audience, the falling tower? We'd love to see it, in addition to many other folks.
Those good guys.
Yes, and Larchwood on any and all social media is worth following if you want to see a lot of this stuff, which they then put in context next to, what they're saying to their own members, highlighting the hypocrisy. So definitely check out Larchwood stuff there. Spin is kind of the name of the game. And in fact, we kind of know that the purpose of this department is to drown out negative news stories and kind of flood the algorithm on search engines to elevate positive stories about Jehovah's Witnesses. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I mean, that's kind of what caught my interest and why I started digging into PID is all of these fluff pieces that were popping up through the pandemic. And, they get them published, show up in Google News, Apple News. And it's always positive stuff, of course. And we see in the manual at one point, they say their goal is to elevate the organization in all of these publishings. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's not just us speculating either. They've kind of talked specifically in video form. So let's maybe show this this Reddit post that you sent me. Hang on. Do I want to do? Okay. I almost clicked a very wrong thing. So let me make sure I don't. I almost hit the airplane wing falls off switch on the plane. So
dream over.
Okay, so this was shared by Let's Be Pimo, and let's make sure we can hear
this. Which is me, by the way, but yeah.
That's you?
Yeah.
Okay. I wondered. I was like, hang on a second. I thought this was you that showed this. So this is, if you've never seen this before, since we're doing a deep dive into all this content. Guys, you now can see on screen. I'm realizing my real email. If you want to flood me with spam, it's my full name at gmail.com. So I just doxed myself, Watchtower. To be fair, I'm leaking my own info. So this, like many departments within Jehovah's Witnesses, like the LDC, for instance, has like internal meetings that they like will record and disseminate. And I think a lot of departments within Bethel do this to some degree. And this is a meeting of the public information department. And so this is something like pre-recorded, right? Is that true? Or is it a live Zoom meeting or something?
They go out as a live stream for volunteers to watch. And they even say volunteers with their families can watch.
That's interesting. Okay.
But then they save them as recordings for people to catch up on later. So.
And that's interesting to know that they do say like it's okay to share this with your family, blah, 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 because they want as many people speaking positively about the organization as possible. And I think it's what's interesting to me about it is that within the organization, it's not like this is some big secret. And yet, if you as a witness wanted to talk about this on the internet and just show it devoid of context, you would get in trouble. And we'll see if this gets copyright request from Watchtower gets taken down. So anyway, here's this. It's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but we'll try and get the context.
There was beautiful work that was accomplished during that return to in-person meetings and in-person memorial. It was remarkable what you brothers and sisters were able to accomplish and how Jehovah blessed our work beyond compare. Here's a little chart that will help us. Just in a very small amount of time, we were able to shift gears very quickly. And from March the 25th through May...
Hits. Now, I guess I was going to just play the whole thing, but I have to pause for commentary.
Yeah.
So they don't ding me. But this is hits on the website? Is that what they're saying? Or just hits on their news articles that they've put out?
Yeah, so that question comes up a lot every time I've shared something related to hits. From what I understand, it is published stories. That's what they count as a hit. So anytime they get in a local newspaper, get on a YouTube channel, get on a TV station, that's a hit. It's not views. If that was views, this is really sad. But it's like published stories. And interestingly, they save them in a database on their internal website where you can see every one of these. They like collect them, whether it's a PDF of a printed newspaper or Robert Hendricks appearing on a TV show. He likes to save them all. So
wow, that's really fascinating. So they're saving their portfolio of hits. That's it seems like mask off in a way to call it like a media hit. I don't know. Like calling a click a hit makes sense to me, but they're just like, yeah, the shit we make, they're all hits. I wanted to shout out this comment too, because this really stood out to me. Even in this like completely internal video amongst people in the know, this guy just sounds so slimy, doesn't he? Why can't they just ever sound sincere? But I think that's just like, it just goes to show like that the new personality, it just always dominates. Everyone kind of has this tone. Anyway, that's not necessarily important, but now we know what hits are.
May the 5th.
That's a lot,
we had
actually.
1,058 total media hits. In fact, when you look on this chart on 3/30, this was the day before we went back to the meetings on Saturday and Sunday, we had over 40 hits just that day alone. And then it was remarkable, as you look at our overall view of our map, these little dots represent all of these hits. And you can see our PID structure was in place, and it adjusted very quickly, and it was able to handle the workload that was thrown at you, dear brothers and sisters. These dots represent all of the different media hits all over the United States, and you can see wonderful coverage. North to south, east to west, the metropolitan areas did magnificent, but also look at these rural areas.
He covered all the cardinal directions, really.
And the rural areas.
rural areas. This is very emblematic of how they talk about the preaching work. It's all like numbers and maps and look how much we're doing. It makes sense, obviously, and no shame on their part, but they're very proud of their numbers. They know how to do the spin for the rank and file, and I think that's sort of every bit as important to their
And
overall goal with this.
something just clicked in my brain that didn't ever before. But why do they call them media hits? In their internal website, and as you'll show later on screen, they have what's called pitching templates. They pitch stories. So someone in PID must be like a baseball fan or something, where they're pitching these ideas and they got a hit. That could be.
I think you're right.
From.
I think you are absolutely right. That's totally what it is. We have that in our department where I work at the hospital. Sometimes if you catch a potential mistake and fix it, you get like a good catch award that has a glove on it. So I wonder if they have that. I wonder if they have like little like, all right, here was our pitcher this month, and they get like everybody in the department signs a baseball for them or something.
You brothers are to be commended for that. As we do a little
you are to be commended. Now, do you think they will commend them, or they're just going to state that they are to be commended at a later date?
I think they do commend them.
They say that all the time, but that wording just never stood out to me until now. It's like, you are to be commended. Later, not now.
Of our map, you'll see California, great success, but also in Hawaii.
Great success.
We were on an NBC news affiliate. 1.5 million viewers saw that program. It was outstanding. You brothers and sisters working in Alaska, kudos to you. You were able to crack into that market and find great success. And all of you, dear brothers and sisters in these supervised lands, we were so excited to see how Jehovah...
In the Caribbean.
They get a lot of TV appearances on local Caribbean news channels. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Does it have to do with it being like touristy or something?
I don't know. Some of the areas where they get a lot of attention might just be because of connections of witnesses who are working in the media. They might have favorable media because of the work they do with like hurricane disaster relief and that catching locals' attention.
Oh yeah, good point.
But there was one, I had it saved to my YouTube, which has unfortunately been taken down. But Robert Hendricks went on to brag about the Jehovah's Witnesses when there was a volcano that was causing mass evacuations of these islands, and it was all about how great witnesses are to take care of each other. So yeah, it's gross.
It is, and as Bear Woody says, crack into the market. It sounds so commercial. I think that's what is most notable to me. Like if I was reading this as a witness, the thing that's notable about it is not necessarily that it's nefarious, although a lot of it is, as we will see, but like it is so clinical and blatantly just like corporate America sounding that it just doesn't feel spiritual at all. There's no room for the Holy Spirit when it's so packed full of data points and algorithms and charts.
Coming up right here in the next few seconds is the key here, though.
Yes, this is what we were building up to.
I had really blessed your work in every way. And then here was the beauty of it. Not only did we have the return to meetings, but then that spilled right over into our memorial. And it was an even split really between the two. But that meant that we were in the news cycle for some 20, 25 days easy. All of the apostate stuff pushed to the bottom, all of the beautiful truths pushed to the top. These are just some of the covers of different news articles, just again representing the work of you hard working brothers and sisters.
And here's the apostate ones that we shoved down. No, they don't show those, but that is
never show those.
Yeah, but what a admission of their ultimate mission here. I don't think it's just that it's a byproduct. It's their goal in large part.
Yeah, and I think it should be fair to clarify that I don't think apostates get published stories in the newspaper that often. But what does happen is negative news stories, and to the organization, anything negative is therefore an opposer, an apostate. It must be motivated by evil people. So,
yes, like
no matter how true it is.
Yeah, like I think I can only even think of a few instances in the last 5 years that an apostate got an article published, and it's usually because it's something that's a part of a bigger media story, like Jan Fruit Nielsen in Norway, for example, or was it in Sweden or was it also in Norway where Rolf Feruli left, and that was covered in that area's
Norway,
newspaper.
yeah.
Right. Okay, that was also Norway. So like usually it's because it's a big deal, but yeah, like this conflation that they're always doing with apostates just meaning any critical media in general means that a sincere journalist just trying to report on a court case with Watchtower happening or CSA happening in the area, that person is now just lumped in with satanic, bitter apostasy. Yeah. And sorry, I got mad. You got anything else on this, or is that basically it for this clip?
No, I just think I think it's a good admission that we caught them saying this, that is one of their primary goals of this department. It is to fill the airwaves and limited airwaves. They get on radio and TV sometimes, but mostly like local news stories. They just want to get positive JW stories in the news feeds so that negative stuff is pushed down. And
yes,
I think I kind of highlighted on Twitter in the last week. I knew that the latest round of Pennsylvania news was coming before they announced it. And so I was ready to say, watch the news feeds, because right now there's all these puff pieces about the convention. And within hours of the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, real news just flooded to the top. These algorithms aren't stupid. They recognize this is a big story. This is real news that needs to be shown right now. But that PID sure hates that, I imagine. So.
Yeah, and nothing to do with witnesses at all, but it's just a known factor that most people do not scroll past the first page of news items. That first batch is, generally speaking, what people are going to do, let alone go to page like 2 or 3 or something. So if you can bury stuff even just a little bit, there's a chance that less eyes are going to get on it. And I think that sometimes I feel like that happened with that really great piece in the Atlantic about the secret database of child abusers. Like that's such an insane piece of journalism. Like, it's such a huge story, but I feel like it just didn't get the kind of traction that that something like that might have happened in another church with less resources to combat it. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like that had the potential to get signal boosted more, or maybe that's a weird example.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a very good article. That it's one of those things though. We have to remember too, as ex-JWs, that a lot of people just don't care about JWs that much.
Yeah,
as
it's true.
We thought the world cared.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But I think that Atlantic article, unfortunately, is now behind a paywall. But if you go to the web archive, archive.org, I think you can find it for free still there. So.
Yeah, and there are ways to bypass paywall sometimes. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about too these hits that they're talking about, these pieces that they're putting out there in the media. We can show some examples of what these actually look like. Now, they showed examples, interestingly, in their little montage at the end, talking about how they pushed back on certain apostate stories. And so in practical terms, here's an example of one of these hits that they got out there to some local, whatever the hell kind of thing this is. There's an article as well as a video piece from about the convention. You sent this to me. Do you have any more context about what this is?
I think it's just a convention in Georgia. So this is PID's primary work. In the broadcasts that we have available online from last year, they talked about the biggest work would be for conventions this year. And we've seen that. If you look in the Google News feed, you will see these same templated stories all across the country flooding, and sometimes multiple different networks cover the same convention, which I'm sure they just love. But yeah, a lot of them they publish the templated story and then they do a little video. And some of them are very cringy bad. But I think this one's okay. But it's interesting that they show in this clip some PID infographics later on in the clip.
Okay, that's interesting. So here's this. This is just like a, basically what this article is. In fact, I don't know if this is a transcript of it or what.
People are here in the Macon Coliseum for the Jehovah's Witness Convention. This year, it's all about exercising patience.
It's a little quieter, but that's just
37
on
congregations,
the
a
website.
little over 1,000 volunteers.
Macon Jehovah's Witness Convention spokesperson Edward Blair says COVID.
Now, here's what I'll say about this video clip is that I do feel like this captured the magic of conventions to me. Like, the way that jw.org shoots convention stuff with these like incredibly like well-lit, color corrected shots of shiny happy people. My memory of going to the Nutter Center in Dayton, Ohio is that it is a dank, dingy building and everyone looks pale and sweaty.
And always up at the top, it's dark and shadowy up there.
Dark and shadowy, like concrete stairs. And this is like the guy in charge. It's just a guy who looks like...
Isn't it interesting that this is always so important that you can bring media in during the middle of a convention and disturb those in front of you and distract them during the program? Because this is important.
Anyway. This is important. And, I remember even before this department existed, like there would be a media services department at the convention. Like that was always the thing. We'll get into more of the structure of how this all works on a local level later. But yeah, so this is one of their local spokespeople, I imagine.
Or at least the convention spokesperson.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I'll bet you're right about that.
COVID kept the convention from coming to town for a few years, but now they're back and better than ever.
And last week we averaged about 4,500 per day.
That's almost 1,400 people filling seats over the 3-day convention. And Michelle Wilkins is one of them.
I'm third generation Jehovah's Witness, so my mom was a witness. She was actually baptized when she was pregnant with me.
Wilkins says she has come to every single convention since she was 7 in the 70s.
You get all the information. It's very encouraging. Everything is Bible-based. I've met people from all over the world and have enjoyed association.
Wilkins says you get to
probably the highlight of that person's like spiritual life is being interviewed for that.
Possibly.
It's really given me some feelings seeing the convention again as I remember it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been in a convention center at this point.
Yeah, these look like the arenas that we would attend.
Yeah. This could have been shot in Dayton, Ohio.
Well, speaking, watch educational videos and movies, and she says Saturday is special because folks are getting baptized.
I'm being baptized today.
Oh, I guess I could turn it up, huh?
There you go.
Now that is an unpleasant baptism pool. That looks like just like a crappy tub. It looks old.
It looks a little better than the water troughs we had at our assemblies. So
we had something of like an inflatable thing. Like, yeah, it was like a big pool that you would like an above ground that you put in your backyard. So wait a minute. Christina, you got baptized in a hot tub? Oh, Christina got baptized in a hot tub. That's something new every day.
We had assemblies at a ballroom at a hotel one time, and they would have to go out in the very cold late fall to go to the hotel's hot tub to do the baptisms. Yeah.
Oh my God. What if they just did it in like one of these brothers like hotel rooms? Like, all right, come back up to my room. We're doing baptisms. Okay, so professional broadcast.
22 people taking the plunge. Sarah Clemens is the oldest at 79 years old. She was shedding tears of joy.
It means everything to me. It lets everybody know that I'm going to do this. I'm going to dedicate my whole life to this.
According to the U.S. branch of Jehovah's.
So this is the internal, like, economic breakdown form.
This would be an infographic from the PID. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to imagine means that someone is doing the work of breaking down every region that has a convention. Here's how you pitch the local media, talk about the economic impact on the community. And that's like the main subject of most of these puff pieces.
It's not the economic impact on the area.
Yeah, it's about the money.
And this, so like you said, this is generated by PID. And I had the same thought you did when I was looking over this morning. It's like somebody's job is to do this. And that is so much work to break this down for every region. And that's grunt work. That's just going to be done by some local elder who, volunteers with his A1 sauce form or whatever form it is. So yes, this is a thing that was provided to them by the branch, by the PID, and now they're showing it in this little video.
Was witness, the convention is projected to bring in almost $5 million worth of revenue through food, retail, lodging, and other costs.
Macon's a great place for like gathering, even if no one is from the area.
Now that's, what is this now? This is wild. So there's transitioning to just like, it brings in people today.
Yeah, you'll see in the pitching document, they want to find businesses who like having witnesses.
Yes. I saw this in the pitching document, and then I didn't actually watch this video earlier. So now I see what they're doing here.
And I can imagine this brew pub is a common place for JWs to go to.
Oh, 100%. I also got to think, like, you know, watching this as something that was essentially curated by Watchtower, they're so excited to have a worldly looking person on camera in this positive piece, you know, this person with like piercings and tattoos and stuff, someone you would never see in a Watchtower video.
Yeah.
But they're thankful for his good press.
Okmulgee Brew Pub front of house supervisor Joshua Rodriguez says summer is usually their slow season, but with the convention in town,
We have seen an uptick in sales for especially being the slow season of the year, and it's definitely helped us out a lot.
in Macon, Jessica Cha, 13 WMAC News.
Great. So, boy,
Bear
that's
Woody-
weird.
Yeah. Bear Woody makes a good point. Left out of the PR stuff is that JWs are notorious for not tipping or leaving literature instead of tips.
Yes, that's so interesting because I think my parents were good about this, and it was always a part of convention reminders, like tip.
Yeah.
And I always just thought, like, wow, it's so weird that they always go in on that. Like, obviously we would do that, but now I hear stories all the time from people who are like, no, these are the worst customers. That's so crazy. Did you know bad tippers?
I have definitely been in groups where I'm embarrassed by the people I'm with.
Oh, okay.
At a dinner after convention. Yeah.
That's a shame. And yeah, because they're also definitely encouraging people like wear your name tag so they know we're Jehovah's Witnesses, and then you know, flip a coin as your tip. Okay, so that is what the final product looks like, but these are all kind of like based around these templates. And so this is a pitching document. This is all stuff that's separate from these guidelines, by the way. These are just like little snippets of it. We'll get into the guidelines later, but I just kind of wanted to go in reverse order of like seeing how it all breaks down. And you can see how granular it is. Now, this is just like for Kingdom Hall construction, their overview and angle. Why is this story timely? How to pitch this story / press release. The one that I think is most interesting is pitching document, Kingdom Hall construction, women. And the media strategy is women play a key role in construction of area, place of worship. So talk about this for a minute.
This is still one of their active campaigns that we have copies of these pitching documents. They go through cycles where, you know, they aren't doing what they used to do for these fluff stories. They're kind of narrowing down their targets, but this one is still very active. I saw a couple in the last month where a Kingdom Hall is getting a new roof put on or whatever, and they are using this template exactly for their puff story. They just get local pictures, put the local names in the right spot, and, you know, get it in the local newspaper. One of them was actually one of my aunt and uncle's congregations in Montana, like 3 weeks ago.
I had so when around the time where I was being disfellowshipped and stuff was the time when they were going back to meetings after COVID, and they did one of their hits in our area, and the like local elder that they talked to, like, and his family was one of the elders on my judicial committee. So like the same week that I like released that recording is the same week that he's like in the newspaper with his family, like, hey. And so like these things are really frustrating because I was like hearing the scuttlebutt of the local witnesses, like, ooh, how exciting, you know, look at this. This was published in the newspaper. I would still, you know, I see it on Facebook. I think witnesses spread this stuff around probably way more than anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it is like, if you can put these things in the media, that gives the impression to witnesses that there are positive stories. It's not all bad, which is true. I mean, there are positive stories, but they're only because they're completely manufactured from the top down.
And that's not just our guessing about it. In the videos, the longer videos, which are available on Reddit, links to those.
Yeah.
And this pitch and this manual for the PID department, they talk about the use of social media by PID volunteers. I'm trying to find the page for it.
Here, let me pull up the documento. We've got, yes. And like I said earlier, this is in the description if you want to click and scroll through this at your leisure. And maybe later we can get to like any like audience questions about it and stuff. But did you have a page? No, I lost Ron Pimo for a second.
Oh, sorry. Page 104 and 105.
104, 105. Did I accidentally click you off the thing?
I don't know. I think it did say I was in the waiting room. So.
Apostates are sabotaging our good work that we're trying to do.
Who else has access to your StreamYard?
That's a good question. Wait, okay. What was it?
104.
104. Department Communications and Social Media. At times, the branch will forward noteworthy links featuring media articles and interviews from a PID or OPI campaign. Those who feel comfortable are encouraged to share such links with personal contacts. Such links should not be sent as a bulk email to non-personal contacts and should not be posted on a social media account. But here, okay, so the use of social media and using or sharing media links.
Be careful about news organizations that allow comments because those will have negative comments on them,
Yeah. And PID and its representatives should not use social media accounts that represent the organization, conventions, the branch, or department. Should not use that stuff. At times, personal social media accounts may be used to forward links to personal contacts and to directly contact media via direct message. Additionally, having agreements with other organizations like a convention venue or a convention visitors bureau to have them publish material to their contacts is permissible. No PID representative is to contact congregations to gather names or contact information in an effort to build a larger social media network. If a personal social media account is used by a PID representative to provide information to their personal network, this is permissible. There is also no need to encourage that message to be forwarded to others. No doubt, these positive messages will organically spread and create their own natural exponential outreach through personal networks. Sorry, that was more to read than I thought going in.
So, there's a couple things to unpack there, but I think the main point we were getting to was JWs share this stuff. The people who volunteer for PID are encouraged to share links of their media hits to their JW friends, which will then forward and forward and forward. And that is one of the primary audiences for this work is JWs themselves.
Yeah. They'll
get this feeling, this amazing, these news organizations are sharing the good news about us and, putting us in a positive light. So.
Yeah. I also if you ever watch the local news stories and stuff that get uploaded to YouTube from the local ABC affiliate or something, the comments will largely be witnesses being like, oh, how wonderful to see Jehovah's organization being put in a good, proper light. It's mostly getting to them because part of their struggle, like a lot of media organizations, is growth is so small. It's so important for them to just retain the members that they have. They're desperately trying to keep people that are already in. Mm-hmm. And this serves that purpose too. If it happens to convert some people, that's good. But it also is just helpful in general that it keeps people in. This is good PR for PMEs,
Yeah. And I think I've noticed on some of the published stories on news YouTube accounts, they will have comments enabled on most of their videos. Yeah. But on some of the JW published stuff, they will turn comments off.
I know.
And I don't know if that's a request made by PID. That's kind of my assumption.
I would almost guarantee it. The problem with that, though, is if you turn comments off in a video, as I understand it, it kind of gets less traction in the algorithm by definition, because like it counts comments as part of like the video engagement. So it's not going to get seen as much. So it probably would weirdly help them if they put comments on that stuff, because
Yeah.
hey, if you get a bunch of apostates arguing, it's still going to get circulated, which is actually not a bad reminder to the audience watching this. Like if you see these news articles and stuff, like don't post the links to them on your social media account. Like take a screenshot and post that, because any engagement for them is like good engagement. They just want this stuff to get spread around.
I wanted to make one more comment on the social media stuff.
Oh, yes.
There was a video clip in one of the longer streams that we saved that matches up with this use of social media, where they do have personal accounts on Twitter. And I've tweeted about it in the past, a bunch of examples of screenshots of people who are coffee lovers and love journalism and taking hikes and all that stuff. It's almost like a template for their personal profile bio. And but anyway, they use these to contact journalists through direct messages or other efforts to get a foot in the door with some of these journalists. And sometimes they do share links to active stories, but their Twitter accounts are generally not used for very much besides, I think, PID work.
No, it's really bizarre, actually. Yeah. Like, it almost is like you're just trying to blend in. Like, I'm just a normal Twitter user, just like you. Because, like, their goal isn't to become, like, a big influencer who can, like, disseminate information on their own on social media. It's like, no, just, like, use this to, like, contact journalists and, like, look like you're just a normal person on Twitter, which is odd, you know? Like, like the way political campaigns will use social media is like they'll find influencers who have a lot of followers and be like, hey, if we pay you, will you just kind of talk about this stuff more or post these links to these stories? But Watchtower is not doing that. They're just doing a thing where it's just like, I don't know, kind of just have a generic Twitter.
Yeah.
Maybe good things will happen.
What's interesting about that though is too, maybe not like the social media influencers, but they purposefully go out and find JWs who aren't any way connected with journalism or media and use them.
Yeah.
You know, they recruit them in to be a PID volunteer. And you've done stories on it before. I think you even emailed a couple people and got responses about some of these like appearances by the spokesman on YouTube accounts. And these people pretend to not be JWs. They almost purposefully, you know, call them Jehovah's Witness or Jehovah's, you know, or
just be like, so what's your deal? Like, what do you guys believe? And
you dig into it, and they are witnesses just pretending not to be witnesses.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. Like the one that we got in the weeds on this stream probably last year at some point was like we were watching a bunch of Robert Hendricks appearances and like fluff pieces on witnesses, and one of them was so strange. Like, and I would look up the host of these programs, and of course he has some website where, you know, like you can contact his agent for whatever you would ever want to contact this guy for. But I did, so I emailed his agent, and the agent is his wife, and he is an elder. He's an elder in their congregation, and he just is some local radio personality too, and just like kind of doesn't talk about it in explicit terms and just like pretended not to be a witness in this interview.
Yeah. I came across one this week, actually, thanks to a random follower on Twitter who said, hey, I know a JW who is a TV news anchor. And I'm like, oh, I bet she works for PID. He's like, oh, no, she's just a JW. And I just type in her name, Jehovah's Witnesses, and she's got all of these templated stories published on their news radio. And she did, during the pandemic, an interview with Robert Hendricks where it's like no indication that she is a Jehovah's Witness. But she is. She's an Emmy award-winning TV news anchor who's a Jehovah's Witness.
What?
Yeah.
The thing that is really wild to me is like, are they going to start doing, like the very first episode of JW Broadcasting, or one of the first ones, had that interview with, I think, Philip Brumley, where they talk about, you know, they sent him to legal school, law school, and lawyer college. And, talk about what a challenge it was because he was involved in Satan's world, and we're not going to do that kind of thing anymore. Now, meanwhile, we know behind the scenes, they still regularly send out letters to elders like, hey, if you know any lawyers who are witnesses or like paralegals or stuff, please send us information. I always wonder if they're going to remove that interview because they're going to start doing that again for things like this. Like, are they going to start actively trying to send people like to be broadcasters or like, I don't know. It seems like you'd want to.
I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I think I have to imagine a lot of them are actually jobs that could be looked down upon by regular witnesses. Like, it's not a typical JW job to be a journalist or to be on a TV.
I think you would be viewed as like suspicious association.
Yeah. And, I have a friend who's kind of he's faded, but he used to work with PID, and he's been a journalist for over 10 years. And, he by some accounts, I hope you're not offended with me saying this if you watch this, but, he wasn't necessarily the picture perfect, strong JW. At times he would grow a beard and, people would give him crap for that. He would be a gigging musician who would go out and do shows. Right. But, he's involved in journalism in some aspect. And so PID snaps those people up. Anybody, it's one of those things. If you have a skill they want to use, your spiritual qualifications don't necessarily matter as much. If you were just somebody applying for Bethel or wanted to help out, So.
Well, Robert Hendricks speaks to that too. He's just a rich guy who had the relevant worldly experience, like him bucking the trend of him not following the society's direction got him pretty far in the society, wouldn't you know it? And I think this does speak to like David Garrett's nice super chat here. I don't believe they actually want the rank and file to be media literate because it encourages some critical reflection. I think that that's going to be a big issue if they do have people who are already journalists coming into this, is they're going to see how cynical it is and be like, wait a minute, what am I wrapped up in here? I got to think it would stand out to some people.
And I think one of the comments, since we're kind of talking on that subject, I have spoken to several people who have either faded or otherwise left Jehovah's Witnesses that used to work in PID. And I have asked them explicitly, what woke you up? And it was a huge part of it was their work in PID. This disingenuous, polished, shiny, happy facade over what JWs actually believe and teach. And as someone who's involved in journalism, you have to recognize that it's not all what David's Plain says it is, where they're just out to get us and they aren't interested in the facts and stuff. People who are involved in this realize that journalistic integrity is something they strive for, and when none of the negative information is being covered, I know that some people have had real issues with that and have even tried to talk with their higher ups about why aren't we addressing CSA?
That's really interesting. I wanted to bring this up. So this is the this internal manual, and so like, listen to this crap. Objectives of a journalist. A journalist's primary objective is finding a newsworthy story for his audience. Often he will focus on topics that appeal to their objective. This isn't the exact thing I wanted. It was like misconceptions. Yeah. While a qualified journalist strives to be objective, the fact is that most journalists don't even know who we are. Interesting admission. Some may be influenced by half-truths or lies in past media reports, and very few may harbor biases based on personal experience. This little bit too. Like many people, journalists may spend little time verifying the accuracy of such information and may be unaware of how much it distorts their view of Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, journalists, they don't care about verifying accuracy.
Yeah.
They have this agenda. Their primary objective is just, making news. It's really condescending towards journalism and treating them like they're these, little hamsters you have to wrangle.
Right. And and the contradictory within this own manual on page 59, which talks about media who's at conventions, which is a really large part of this manual is about media at conventions. But on page 59, they talk about, why you need to escort media the entire time while they're at the convention, and making sure that this ensures, sorry, if you're on page 59, escort the media the entire time while at the convention. Feel free to escort them right to their car or van and wave goodbye.
Feel free.
This ensures that if they speak to someone on their way out of the convention, you will be aware of it, and you can help the reporter contextualize the comment or even respond to it if it is negative. You need to control the setting while not appearing to be controlling the reporter. This is also important because apostates might be on the corner just outside the venue. If the reporter chooses to speak with them, it would be good if you are present. Which, how awkward would that be if they're like, I'm just going to stand right next to them while they're talking to someone holding a sign out on the sidewalk. But
that's not going to make it in the story, surely. If I creepily try and dissuade them from talking to our critics, that will make
I would love to just have that on camera from the news station.
I know.
But the main point I was getting to further on, it talks about like, if you see that happen, be ready to follow up. Call the journalist later and follow up.
Yeah.
If we want to correct something. And they say on page 60 at the top there, while we don't worry about the names being misspelled or small facts being misstated, the important facts should all be correct. If they are not, call or email immediately as time is of the essence. Most journalists want to get the facts right. So it's like just earlier they were talking about journalists don't really care.
Most journalists don't care about facts, except for most journalists who do actually want to get the facts right.
We want to give them our facts, and they'll care about those facts.
100%. Yeah. If you can catch it early, they are usually happy to make an adjustment. There's so much that you could say about this too. Like, maybe we should back up and lead up to this.
We're kind of all over the place
a little bit more, but no, we're doing a good job. We're doing great. But this is so important that like this wording, you need to control the setting while not appearing to be controlling the reporter, but you are trying to control the reporter. You just can't appear like you are. Like the entire point of this is you have to make sure that like they get to their car without there being an apostate interception or, weird sister so-and-so who gives the crazy comments coming in and saying something that's going to accidentally paint the organization in a negative light. It's like from the time they get there to the time they leave, you have to be monitored. And what stood out to me is I read a few months ago Mike Rinder's autobiography on living Scientology, and he said like that was their exact same practice when they would try and get generate positive media stories, and part of what they would offer is like give them tours, but it would be so monitored like the entire time. Obviously it's the same tactics because you can't just let them come to their own conclusions about what they're seeing. Most journalists who, like, I was reading a book about this about QAnon, Trust the Plan, and this guy, he would go incognito to QAnon events, especially after people in the cult started knowing him as one of the guys who reports on QAnon. So he would have to put on the baseball cap and sunglasses like they do in Marvel movies and try and hide there just so he could observe it, without being influenced by all these people there. So they specifically, I don't know, they're going to make the opposite impression if they really do this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think most journalists would be like, wow, that was overwhelming and strange?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting too. There's a whole section on how to prepare others because like we saw on that video we watched a little bit ago, there was a sister who was interviewed about her being a third generation witness, and her mom was baptized while she was pregnant at a convention. So they want to pick someone who will be a good face for the convention and let the local news stations do a little interview with them. But there's a whole section in here on page 67 of how to prepare others for an interview.
Yeah, this is really wild too. It's like very specific.
And it is very specific about there is so much in this manual about legalese and being careful with terminology. But this is one example of if individuals agree to be interviewed, the following points should be shared with them. They are speaking in a personal capacity, not as representatives of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, and I think they say that in another area too.
Oh, yes. And what you were talking about too, with like avoiding terminology or making statements that could be viewed by non-witnesses as derogatory, judgmental, or over-righteous, such as the terms worldly and wicked, or referring to the convention city, hotels, or other area attractions in a negative way. Well, obviously that, but this is a very interesting admission. You know, if I'm a witness who's just excited to be in this new spiritual assignment looking at this, I don't think I've ever realized that I'm regularly referring to people in a derogatory way. Like, worldly was just a fact of my world as a witness. That was just the way I would have expressed other people. I wouldn't have thought like, oh yeah, for the outside world, we're very self-righteous and we have a like condemnatory attitude towards them.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's a lot of like little candid admissions in this document.
Yeah. So same line, different wording earlier. Convention attendees, they kind of also want to describe terminology for journalists to use a little bit of internal.
Yeah.
They want to define things, but those who are given an opportunity to participate do so in the capacity as an individual attendee who is one of Jehovah's Witnesses and not as a representative of the organization. So they're very careful about that.
Yeah.
That was on page 38. Sorry.
Well, let's because there's some good stuff here. I think we have enough context to jump into this thing proper. Although the one thing I was thinking of showing before we did was that video clip that you sent me. Would that be interesting? Because you mentioned that you have had a lot of people that you've talked to wake up in large part due to being a part of PID. And there's this clip you sent of Robert Hendricks seemingly getting a little emotional about people leaving.
Yeah, I think there's a couple parts in some of the bigger streams. Last year, I think some things in PID were changing quite a bit. Some of it had to do with, I don't know. Anyway, there were some things changing with how they were operating. I think they were getting reined in a little bit, but we were kind of coming out of the lockdowns of the pandemic. And so I think a lot of people were volunteering with PID because they're all stuck at home and they have the time to do it.
Yeah.
But now, things were opening up and they were kind of moving along. And so, yeah, this clip was kind of like a pleading with people is kind of how I took it.
Let's see. I think I should have this in my downloads. Yes, here we go.
Thank you very, very much for just being.
This is Robert Hendricks. So we've referred to him several times. PID is very much his department. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, he is the head of the department and these are branch departments. So there's like a PID for the United States. This is the one. He's the head of it. He's kind of the creator of what it has become. And I lost my train of thought, but yeah. That's
okay. No, but he's the head honcho. And yeah, like now the PID is referred to in the Shepherd book. So like, elders worldwide presumably are, getting PIDs and such. So here's this.
We thank you very, very much for just being there for us. We're supporting you. We love you very, very dearly. We know that many of you are going through many, many issues, and we thank you for persevering in the work. We thank you for all that you do for Jehovah. We thank you for staying loyal to us and especially to Jehovah's organization and to him. And we pray that that will continue as you continue your productive, powerful, and amazing work with the Public Information Department. We'll ask Brother Brumley if he will give us the privilege of listening to his blessing at the end.
Wow, what an emotional plea from our boy here.
I thought it was interesting, the order. It
is, yeah.
Thank you for being loyal to us with the internal PID, loyal to Jehovah's organization, and of course, loyal to God.
Yeah.
All that you do for Jehovah, we thank you for staying loyal to us and especially to Jehovah's organization and to him. And we pray.
And to him, last place. To us, me, the guy talking to you on the screen. That's amazing.
And I might be just adding commentary onto it or contextualizing it from an outside perspective, but the number of people I've talked to who said that working with PID woke them up. I wonder if it's one of these departments that has a lot of turnover, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think that makes a lot of sense. Sam Burns Toes says, control the media and you control the masses. They have an uphill battle in controlling the media, but they are doing a pretty good job of at least dominating the algorithm a little bit. Beta Ray asks, am I active? Do you mean as a witness? Probably not that, because that's not a thing. As a witness, no. I have not been active for like 3 years now. If you just mean physically, no. I mostly do this where I am sitting and talking. So no, on all accounts, not active in any way. Let's talk about the old documento here on Avoid JW. So branch level organization, we don't have to go through everything in super granular detail, but I wanted to do a little tour of this strange Orwellian document. It is organized, and of course the fact of organization is part of how we know it's miraculous, because it is so organized. They've got many charts, they've got graphs,
and acronyms.
They have so many acronyms.
There's probably dozens of unique acronyms just in this document.
And you say unique, but they are at a point where they are at some point stealing existing acronyms such as BET. That means something already. That's a whole television channel. You can't just have a new BET. This is the US PID structure, which I find very interesting. And you can copy and paste this kind of thing to basically any assignment chain in the organization, like the like convention departments, like the way those are organized all the way up to the branch, and the LDC is kind of similar, and you have these local reps and stuff. But these like, to what extent do you have to what extent is this going to affect like local congregations? Like, are there going to be people in local congregations who are kind of like assisting in some way with the PID?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's people that I know in real life, witnesses across the region who I know work in the PID. I learned that because of access to some of this documentation and other files I got. But yeah, they're very involved in. It can be as simple as someone who is providing research or photography for the organization, or it can be someone helping with accounting, to get these numbers, estimates for the puff pieces on convention economic impacts. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of clerical work, and then there's a lot of people who just try to take these pitching documents and get them published in the local news stories. These are witnesses in congregations across the country. I mean, there's thousands in the United States of regular JWs who are like remote Bethel volunteers who are doing this part-time in this to help the organization. So,
and it's also like, you can see how because this whole organization is very much like structured like an MLM in a lot of ways, and it's also like the way that they have strategically removed liability for a lot of their people, in terms of legal issues. We'll get into some like terms that they avoid because of potential legal issues, but in the same way that like local elders are now on the hook in like lawsuits against the organization for like CSA cases, like if you mess up, they could potentially isolate it to, some support or team lead or something, as opposed to it going all the way up to the branch and the branch being implicated.
Yeah, the assistant to the local spokesman is there to be thrown under the bus. So
yeah, so I think that's like a good little warning for any PMO elders. Like, I wouldn't be taking any of these assignments because I don't know, you're kind of a fall guy. Yeah, local spokesman and local spokesman assistant, all of this stuff is free labor, by the way. Imagine it's probably going to be people who are already appointed in some way, or full-time pioneer, somebody.
Yeah, probably some of them would be specifically for men in appointed positions, but there's a lot of women who work on the PID, and they get access to these files. They get access to the broadcasts that they do internally and everything.
That's interesting. Do you know if they can count time doing it?
I imagine if you're a pioneer,
Yeah, it's sacred service.
Mhm.
Yes, there's a lot of assistant to the regional managers in this kind of thing. And so I don't know, which is funny because I feel like Witness is like The Office. So I don't know how they missed this one, but there's a lot of assistant to the regional managers here. Hey, do you want to say hi? No. Okay. Our Peachy is taking naps. Christine is taking naps. So it's very cozy in the house. We've got so many responsibilities. This is like so much work. It was my takeaway from this. Like organizing the recruiting, training, and shepherding of all volunteers under their oversight. And this is what stood out to me is like, you're going to be liable for anything that goes wrong with these people, like local spokesman and assistant responsibilities. You're responsible for their training and like appointing and stuff. So if anything goes wrong with them, that's on you. So we don't have to go over absolutely everything, but there's a ton of responsibilities. I don't know. Did anything stand out to you about these roles or not so much? I was going to move on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of boring stuff.
It's pretty boring.
It is interesting. Like you said, at certain levels, they have like meetings they have to do every 2 weeks, or they have meetings they have to do every twice a month, and then quarterly and monthly. And so it's like, yeah, some of these people are putting in a lot of volunteer time.
Yeah.
I imagine sometimes it's stressful to just find the time to do it all too.
Yeah. And like, what is like, how fulfilling would this even be at the end of the day? Like once a year, a newspaper publishes an article based on a template that you worked on. I don't know. At least like if you're unpacking the magazines from the boxes, you get to do that satisfying, like taking out the magazine. Then you make nice stacks. This, I don't know. This doesn't speak to my particular OCD tendencies. So much organization, so much pie and charts. Now let's talk about the content teams, because I'm a content creator, so this speaks to my personal interests. The content teams provide media representatives with newsworthy quotes, experiences, photos, and videos. They also document certain activities within the branch territory. What you know about the content teams, Ron Pimo?
Not much. Jonathan, XJW Witness Awake, made a comment in there. All those JWs who shoot wedding photos, you too can make a difference on the PID.
Great point.
Those are the kind of people who will be recruited into PID for the content creation side of things. If you're a photographer, if you're a videographer, if you are an experienced, like graphics editor or something, yeah, you'll be recruited.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Like they'll find ways to give you that like ego boost of, oh, you can use your skills not for Satan's world, but for Jehovah. Yeah, this stuff though is like coordinating the gathering of quotes, videos, and photographs for localized media release. Like,
yeah,
so much stuff. It sounds like so much work to put on just like local.
I think one of the big sections in this that I think is interesting is the documenting of disaster relief.
Yes, because this is one of their responsibilities.
It's a big responsibility for them, and we know that it's used in two ways. It's used for their puff pieces in the media, and it's used for internal propaganda on like JW broadcasting. JWs don't go into a disaster area without cameras rolling. They're very much like Scientology in that way. They want to see the blue JW org logo on people's hard hats. They want it to be documented.
They want the brand out there.
Just like video cameras follow governing body members around everywhere they go.
Yeah. No, that's let's see if we could jump to that. Is this disaster?
Let's see if I can help you find it.
Because this is still like
here's a document, people, like 140 pages.
It's 140 pages.
It's not like filled every page, but it is a lot of pages of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff, and like look how granular it is with like, here's how you use your Bethel email and Microsoft 365, all this stuff. And what you will notice, and these do not work as far as I know, but you will see links to videos. So they have internal videos. Like we obviously saw a couple clips of their like PID update meetings, but there's also like, Here's one on cybersecurity. What happens if I oh no, because this is going to link to the Vimeo that's locked now, right?
Yeah, somebody tweeted about a Vimeo page like last June, and it caused somebody to delete his Vimeo.
Some person did that. It was weird.
Videos.
Yeah, it was somebody with maybe a bit of a personal beef with Robert Hendricks, or not beef, but he might have beef.
Oh, he had beef for sure.
He had beef. Okay, so then this is what we were talking about earlier, how they dictated this document. Like, typically meetings are scheduled as follows, and like, if depending on what job you have, you have to meet maybe weekly, maybe twice a month. Boy, you're mostly meeting weekly for a lot of these departments. That's a lot. Like, a weekly meeting, this is hard for me to do. This weekly bullshit it was just me, talking. You got to do that on top of having 2 meetings and family worship and all that crap. A lot of weight.
Right. I'm still trying to find a good section on the disaster relief.
Now okay, let me know when you find it, because I want to talk about the new BET, because it does not stand for the Black Entertainment Network or anything. It stands for the Branch Editorial Team. They bring together writers and content producers from around the branch territory to generate story ideas and press releases for branch-wide and localized media placement. The team meets weekly under the direction of a branch contact and BET coordinator to develop future campaigns and review current work that will be used for JW.org newsroom and national and local media placement. I'm working on my voiceover work for, corporate videos they have to do. The BET collaborates with the Branch Media Strategy Team, BMST, the Bowel Movement Street Team, to ensure that the content and angle or stories are marketable in the current media milieu. Bold of this team to throw out the word milieu in a piece. That stood out to me. And was important. Now, did I, not to cut you off, but did I show a template of the fill in the blanks earlier?
You showed one template for the construction work one.
Oh yes, but I've got one that's maybe we can get back to it later, because I was just going to show how this all works. Like, when they're talking about from pitching to producing, they're talking about pitching the kind of articles that we saw earlier, like assembly halls and kingdom halls are reopening after COVID, or there's a convention in your area. Here's why this is a big deal because of the economic impact and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And what they'll do is, because I don't think I showed this, they generate and I have confusion on who sees this template. If it's only PID or if they're sending this fill in the blanks to some local reporter or something. But this is essentially what we saw earlier, right? But this is the fill in the blanks version of it that they've generated. Economic boost expected as in-person live events return to local venue. Now, this is interesting to me because they specifically in this document say not to refer to conventions as events. And then this is an example. So maybe they've shifted direction. But it's county, city, or region expects restaurants, shops, blah, blah, blah. The name of Assembly Hall, 4,000 attendants. It's all fill in the blanks. Jeff Smith, a local business owner. And we saw a Jeff Smith type, our pierced and tattooed gentleman who basically said they got a quote of him saying exactly what they wanted. Business is slow, but when the witnesses come in, we get an economic surge in the area. So it's good.
Yeah. So a section that will never be changed is in black, where they're quoting Robert Hendricks, U.S. spokesman. They always want that one in the template. And to see these in action, I don't know if you want to do an experiment, but you could pick a piece of that quote, however, our in-person assemblies and conventions have highlighted. If you copy that and put it in Google, I guarantee you probably 4 or 5 at least.
Yeah. And in fact, I will do that right now.
I have even seen some take a quote from a template and PID in Nigeria says that the local spokesperson says this, and they quote the local spokesperson with his name, but it's the same exact templated quote. So it's not even something unique that the local JW said. It's just they slapped the local spokesman's name on this quote and got it published. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So like we could see like all of these little local places, right? It's not like the New York Times. It's the Porterville Recorder, whatever that is, the Bucks County Herald.
Yeah,
and
they're all the same story.
All the same story. I mean, look at this.
Woodburn.
In order to show you the we have omitted some entries very similar to the 10 already displayed. Yeah, let's conclude it. I mean, it's a ton, right? And this is so these are their hits, is they essentially make a template that they are able to generate.
Go back down. There was one that was a forum.
Oh.
JWForum.net.
Oh.
What is that?
Let's take a look.
Sorry.
Yeah. Wait, why did this doesn't look like a forum at all?
No.
Wait, well, hang on a second. I'm interested in getting the most latest news for my immediate information. What?
Wait, this is a JW specific news?
What is this?
Like they're taking media. Oh my goodness, this is interesting. We just made a discovery.
This is bizarre. What is this? Yeah, so this is like a templated piece. This is where it's pulling the information from, but like, okay, what happens if I click on governing body? Oh,
so
what?
It's linked to the official website. So like go to just the homepage, the banner, good news, world good news.
It's all
these. My goodness. This must be some JW who's collecting all positive puff pieces and just putting them on their website.
Yeah, look.
Wow.
That's exactly what that is.
This is where our families go to then email and Facebook around all the positive stuff.
I found a trustworthy news source.
Yeah,
it's called World Good News for happy people all over the world.
My goodness. And I wonder what some of the ads are. I can almost guarantee you there's going to be like Met Bible Tour or JW Travel.
Good point. So I had one pop up that was like offering to send me updates, notifications. AI chat GPT about JW. Wait, what the fuck? What is this? What is this? What is this? AI chat GPT about JW.org website. JW.org is a website operated by the Jehovah's Witness organization that provides a wealth of... So they just typed in this prompt to chat GPT and copied and pasted it here?
Look, the robots are so positive of us, which is totally not true.
No.
With chat GPT.
Just check with My Little Email. It'll show you some chat GPT stuff on Jehovah's Witnesses. This is bananas. This is the news.
Wow.
I put this in chat GPT and I made a headline out of it. That's very strange.
Yeah, I'm glad we found this sidetrack here.
Yeah, this is, and so the benefit of doing this, as I understand it, because like this is something that like the Russian disinformation campaign in 2016 in US elections looked like, is they would form all these different little websites and blogs that would kind of like copy and paste the same information from like one central hub. And that way, like if you search for something, you're getting like 9 million results for something. And it seems like, oh, wow, this must be legit because look at all these websites reporting on it. And that alone gives you the impression that it's newsworthy. So I think there's a little bit of that where they're like, they're using like Russian bot technology, or not technology, but like tactics.
Discover
like,
Croatia.
The reason, like the reason to like just copy and paste this thing that's clearly an existing news article is just because then it's another thing in
on
the algorithm.
One more on the, if you scroll down a little bit, was there a description of what this website was below the Enjoy Life Forever thing on the right?
Oh, there's a
little farther. A little farther. There it is. This is not the official website of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh,
that's the authoritative website to go to. Okay, interesting.
But where else are you going to get your 2024 Memorial Jesus Death counter widget?
Oh my goodness.
That's cool, man. That is cool. I would click on this, and except now I'm worried that it would just immediately take me to my personal Facebook page and something weird would happen. But and I mean, it's not doing great. The Facebook page part of it only has 55 followers. Wow, I'm really glad that you made me go back and click on this. This is insane. But what is this? So iBooking is clearly, they're sponsored by them.
I don't know.
That's an ad. I mean, that's what that is.
You've heard about JWBNB or
yes,
yeah, something like that. Like
it is like JW
Bro BNB or something.
Bro
like that.
BNB, Bro and
I can't remember.
Brothers and Breakfast. I also okay, let's get back to this document. That was insane. That's so weird, but that is almost certainly a PID person.
Or just it could just be a JW who's
or just a fan.
Like, yeah, he's a fan of PID.
It's a fan run blog. Wow, that's crazy. So from pitching to producing, this is where they outline their strategy that we have seen and covered throughout this, with nice little graphics, microphone, film shutter thing. Look at this. This is like something that they would show you in Nexium or something. Really crazy. The branch media strategy team. The branch media strategy team works collaboratively with the branch editorial team to generate ideas for editorial content and how the resultant press releases may be pitched to the media on a regional level. They meet weekly. I mean, how are they meeting weekly about this stuff? Like they've got like two things. They've got like conventions and construction. Like what are these weekly meetings about?
Well, I mean, for some people, this is their like entire work, you know, for the organization. Now.
They're getting a stipend from the branch even for this.
Well, I have to admit, there are some Bethelites who work on PID.
Yeah.
And then there's the remote volunteers who work with PID.
Who they're working part-time and doing this.
Interesting, they're under the role of the BMST, the third one down, work with national media and internet-based sites, Business Insider, Bloomberg, Christianity Today, trade journals and sites, pitch story ideas.
This stood out to me. Christianity Today, I always notice, has their little puff pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And let's check out Christianity Today. I mean, it's not this is a secular, well, I mean, secular might not be the right word. It's a Christendom website.
Yeah. Religious News Service is also another one that they get a lot of puff pieces put on. But occasionally they also cover CSA scandals too. So
it might not be ChristianityToday.com. Oh no, it is. Yeah. Oh, come here, BG. Sorry. Yeah. So I've just pulled it up. Like it's just all kind of religious news about everything. It's not necessarily worth looking into, but like they're going to be they want to be part of religious news next to, you know, news about any other Christian denomination.
There is a PID volunteer who's pretty well known, I think, in like the Northeast region of the States for working with PID. He on Twitter posted about attending the Religious News Service conference.
Oh, wow.
Like, there was like a conference for all of these religions to go to for their media strategies. And they're just part of it. They take part of all of that stuff. It's kind of crazy.
Peaches is just being very needy right now. Sorry, I had to take care of this. But that's so they're going out there and going to these conferences too. They're trying to get the word out. See, that's very interesting.
And they use professional tools too. In some of the video streams that were shared, they talk about paying for a very expensive media tool that like connects you with journalists and has all their contact information.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, news media in the United States is so intertwined and corporatized and
yeah.
It's
that's so wild. So conventions, let's talk about this a little bit, because if you're a Jehovah's Witness or ever have been, you know that like you can always count on there being some convention article in the local newspaper somewhere, probably, right? And this is big. Conventions provide an a unique opportunity each year to bring praise to Jehovah and glory to his great organization. Cool. While the preaching work certainly provides the greatest collective shout of praise to Jehovah, the cumulative impact of thousands of conventions being held around the world brings great honor to him as well. This is very interesting to me, that they see having conventions in and of themselves as like being a preaching work, because it's just like giving publicity to Jehovah.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I guess I probably knew that, but I wouldn't have thought in those terms. Now, this I find interesting, just because this whole thing has been so bureaucratic. This must be the first scripture we've seen the entire time, and we're 32 pages in. In poetic terms, King David spoke about how inanimate creation brings praise to Jehovah each day. He wrote, "The heavens are declaring the glory of God. The skies above proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, their speech bubbles forth." Was he talking about comics, speech bubbles? "And night after night, they reveal knowledge. Even those without faith marvel at a majestic mountain, a brilliant sunset, a beaming constellation, or a fjord carved into a mountain range." I think they're also showing off, by the way, that they know how to write, because they talk about the quality of good writing later in this document, which stood out to me because the quality of the writing in the publications is so boring and poor. Like, they're clearly trying to go a bit of a step above in the stuff that they're presenting to journalists. You know, they're trying to appeal, I guess, maybe towards like a college educated audience. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that.
I don't know.
But so far we've had milieu. I mean, fjord is just a thing that exists, but still, it seems like they're saying more things than the Watchtower does these days. Conventions accomplish something similar. They enrich those in attendance spiritually and emotionally. But what about those who look on from a distance? Notice the further words of David in verses 3 and 4 of Psalm 19. "There is no speech and there are no words. Their voice is not heard, but into all the earth their sound has gone out, and to the ends of the inhabited earth their message." Without question, conventions have this effect on people no matter where they live on earth. Many local officials and business leaders have marveled at the work Jehovah's people do to plan and run conventions. And I'll say, I do think that that's true. Like, I do feel like I had the experience as a witness of talking to people like, wow, that's really impressive that you organized all of that stuff through volunteers. It is impressive. I don't know, if it's necessarily impressive for the right reason.
In the current puff pieces that are going around, they do like to mention that they are the largest convention organization in the world.
The largest group that regularly holds big conventions.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's weird. That's
I wouldn't be surprised if that's true.
No, it's probably true, but it's also like those Guinness World Records where it's like the person with the longest fingernails on a unicycle. It's like, well, that's so specific. How many people could that even apply to? Like, how many people are holding regular large conventions anyway? But I'll bet they're right. Conventions help the U.S. Public Information Department accomplish its primary work as directed by the branch committee, at which point they just quote the branch committee. What's interesting about this is consider why conventions are a fundamental way to accomplish this work. Large events naturally attract attention in communities throughout the branch territory. Conventions typically have a profound impact on a city or region economically, socially, and spiritually as attendees fill hotels, restaurants, and city streets. And you saw in that economic breakdown form we showed earlier, they specifically show the added revenue to hotels. So I wonder, because my dad's I don't know, it's not like doxing him, but he was involved for the last few years with the rooming department at the conventions where they're negotiating with hotels and stuff. I wonder if they're involved with getting the stats on here are the deals we're getting with hotels and how much the room rates are, how many people stay.
Yeah. It sounds like throughout all of this that they are very intertwined with the regional convention committees.
Yeah. Well, they're getting a lot of, information from them as far as statistics and amount of witnesses in the area and stuff. So yeah, they have this, the convention thing is a huge part of it. It's generating good convention publicity. And here again, we also have, if attendants see unescorted media professionals taking video or conducting interviews on the venue property, they should contact the attendant, overseer, or his assistant immediately, who will then contact the PC rep. Why? Can we not cut out the middleman here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's sections in here that really talk about vetting journalists and inviting those who are positive towards the organization. They don't want surprises at the convention.
100%.
They want people who are invited, and they're going to stick to the script, which is really interesting right now. I've been wondering, are they inviting any media to conventions in Pennsylvania right now? Because how would you be involved in the news media at all and then not be aware of the current scandals going on?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, local XJWs are going to absolutely flood those, journalists with a firestorm of stuff if they were to just like uncritically report on that stuff. It's impossible if you're a journalist in Pennsylvania to be like, oh, yeah, what's going on in Pennsylvania witnesses these days? Oh. They're having a convention.
They should definitely cover Martin Hawk getting his name passed and picture passed around with.
Yes, good point. Was this shared on Reddit? I saw it on Self-Aware NPC's like post on.
Yeah, it's on Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. Basically Martin Hawk, who's a former elder.
That's how it's pronounced, is Hawk.
That's what I've heard. He's done a lot of interviews and has testified before the Pennsylvania grand jury investigation into Jehovah's Witnesses, and some Jehovah's Witnesses started passing his name and picture around for the attendant department at conventions to say, do not allow these people to enter the convention. They're mentally unstable, and they've been known to cause disruptions at conventions before. And it's like totally. Martin says that's not true at all.
That's not true. Yeah, there's no way. Okay, let me pull this up. I've got it here. So this is pretty wild. Share screen. I think this is it, right? A fellow XJW on this sub shared this email with me. I cannot believe my wife and I made it to the attendance watch list by ex-Elder Hawk. JWs are having their regional convention in Reading, Pennsylvania this weekend. This email was sent to the attendants. My wife and I did demonstrate at the 2018 convention, but not one time did we try to enter the building. That is just a lie. I have not been to any convention, Kingdom Hall, or assembly since 2016. The irony is that the picture of me in the suit was taken at a press conference where I was speaking about JW's handling of ZSA cases. Amazing. So here is the email. Now, this person, I have to say, took quite a risk, didn't they, leaking this? Like, because that is like a limited list of people. There are definitely a lot of attendants at a convention, but still,
this definitely means it's a probably an appointed PMO working in the attendant department.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're limited to like whatever, probably elders and servants, and maybe a few like exemplary, baptized, whatever's. Anyway, attached as a confidential file. Continuing pictures. Oh, good. So it's not just the people on my YouTube channel. Nobody can spell. Pictures of 3 individuals that we will not permit entry into our convention. These pictures are for your eyes only and are not to be shared with anyone else. Please be sure to have this file saved for easy access on your cell phone in the event we need to consult any of these pictures. For what? Like a hold up? Like, hey, let me pull up this picture. You're side by side. This you? The husband and wife have been known to attempt entry into our conventions by mingling with the crowd upon entry, dressing and acting as if one of us. They are not one of us! Be alert to anyone not displaying this year's lapel card and engage them in a conversation just outside the arena, just as we've been trained. The other woman has a history of mental Oh, come on. The other woman has a history of mental instability and has been prone to violent threats. This is fucked. I'm so sorry to Martin and his spouse. That's really messed up that they would say this.
I think that's a third woman that they're referring to there, not Martin's wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, bad on me for assuming that's who they meant. I thought it was like the other woman was. No, that makes sense what you're saying. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's funny that they put those pictures in that order, because if they just swapped them, they'd be in the same frame. That's Martin and his wife Jennifer, I think, and that was on one of the documentaries of covering up CSA among Jehovah's Witnesses. And then the picture with him in the suit is him testifying.
That's him testifying
before a Pennsylvania demonstration or something. So.
Yeah, absolutely. They are not one of us. Yeah, I'll tell you everything called. Yeah. That's absolutely bananas. I'm glad that you reminded me to show this.
I think the red beard would give him away.
I know. Hey, if you see literally anyone with a beard, your eyes are already going to be open a little bit, right? So just keep an eye out for a red beard, like the pirate. Absolutely crazy. So, I mean, there is a certain level of paranoia that I think is present throughout, obviously, what we just saw at that convention, but obviously this is such a good point. This shows the invitation work is a ruse. If the public actually came, they'd be followed and treated like potential apostates.
Yep.
That's a really good point. I think that it's hard to reconcile that.
Yeah. There was a good Reddit post just this last week by a guy who turned down being an attendant. Like, he's in a position where he got the attendant training and he was asked to be an attendant, but he didn't. And he left his suit jacket with his lapel at his seat and was walking around and getting followed everywhere and being given the 3rd degree from every attendant he passed by.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Just because he didn't have his name badge on, even though he was an attendant. Like, absolutely ridiculous. But isn't that some kind of like quiet acknowledgement that if somebody shows up from the invitation work, like, whoa, what, really? You actually wanted to come to a convention? That's so weird. I just assumed nobody would ever come to this. Like, if somebody does show up, you're like, that's suspicious. Hang on.
Yeah, 2 things. I think they will be followed by attendants wherever they sit. But then also, if they're like legitimately just there to check it out and are interested, then they'll be love bombed,
yes,
at a break or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's true. This Ex-Witness Awake says, with your writing skills and kooky humor, you can make a JW spoof site in the vein of The Onion. Someone was doing that on Twitter for a while, and it was actually really good. They did
Jason was actually doing that. He did the homepage.
Oh, that was Jason Wynn who did
that?
Yeah. That was so good. That was always very, very funny. So yeah, just get Jason to do it. So much stuff about the convention, as we know. Press pass. Oh boy. This is, speaking of The Office, this is like when Dwight made press passes for the watermark issue that they had in The Office. Like, really, for this rinky-dink operation?
Well, it's kind of because of what we were just talking about. You'll be followed around otherwise.
Yeah, no.
You're press. Okay, so someone should be escorting you.
But I think, to any reporters out there who end up covering a convention, I think what you need to do is you need to get like an old-timey like trilby hat and that you can put the press pass in so you can look like a real old-timey reporter. I love it. I want to get a press pass someday. Or a backstage pass. Just a pass in general will be very exciting.
Yeah, that was a reception area for. Hey, this one's got an interesting quote on this page right here.
Understanding our audience.
Yeah, the last sentence there. The goal will always be to elevate Jehovah, the organization, and our work and the convention arrangement while directing the journalist and his audience to jw.org.
Yeah, that's the end of the funnel is jw.org. That's where they want everybody to filter at some point or another.
Yeah, and all pieces are going to be positive. I mean, there's nothing negative about Jehovah's Witnesses on jw.org. They aren't going to post news stories about real news. Unless it's a JW being imprisoned for their faith. So
exactly. And those are things that tend to spread organically, like they mentioned in that other section. Like, when Jehovah's Witnesses were banned in Russia, that was of interest to everybody. And I think most of the, Western press was very supportive of the witnesses and critical of Putin. And that's a situation where you don't even necessarily need a media department, or you do, like, you could see the use of it. But like, other than that, like, yeah, for the most part, they're in the news because of bad stuff. So you have to fake all these human interest stories.
Yeah. I think these next few pages are critical ones.
I agree. Yeah. Objectives of a journalist. I read some of this. I think I actually read this, right? About the story is newsworthy to the audience. The spiritual aspects of the convention that attract the interest of those who attend may not be what a journalist believes will draw his audience to a story. Yeah, no shit. However, always try to draw attention to the program themes and relate it to current events or community concerns. You know, manipulate people emotionally. For example, the 2020 theme, Always Rejoice, was particularly marketable against the backdrop of the ongoing pandemic.
Marketable
against the ongoing pandemic. Always attempt to make these correlations for the journalist.
Mhm.
Do not rely upon their own ability to be a journalist who, you know, knows how to fucking write and think like, hey, how does this relate to our community? Oh, right, the pandemic. Ay, papi. An objective journalist will strive to avoid bias in his reporting, or at least the appearance of being biased. On the positive side, this can mitigate how much of his own incorrect views about Jehovah's Witnesses seep into news coverage. On the other hand, so as not to appear as if he is campaigning for Jehovah's Witnesses, it also means that his comments about the convention may not be as complimentary as you think they should be. Set your expectations accordingly. They said the convention was nice. It was the best convention ever. They didn't say that. Great.
Yeah.
Do you think that Tucker Carlson got the same playbook for PR from Fox News?
Christina's trying to make this so spicy and political, which I also was about to do, to be fair. So she's never far from my heart. But yes, this is very interesting. Like an acknowledgement again that, like, you know, in order for them to be unbiased, like they may have to report on something negative also happening. I don't know.
No, yeah, that's what they would do, but that's not what they want. What PID wants to acknowledge will happen. I mean, there's a video of OPI, which OPI is the organization-wide, the world headquarters PR department, and then PID is under those at every branch level. But OPI stands for Office of Public Information.
Yeah.
And that's got that lawyer, Paul Gillies, which is kind of infamous for his testimony a few places. You know, they like to spout that their goal is to disseminate beautiful words of truth to all of these. You know, they're getting wrong information everywhere else. We got to tell them the truth about Jehovah's Witnesses. And it's interesting at the end of this page, it said all interactions with the media should be viewed as teaching opportunities. Understand your audience, hone the message, and make effective use of the short time you have with journalists. So put the JW training to work.
Yeah.
But this part, the guilt always comes up. Always view their errors in the story as partially your responsibility, since somehow you were not able to communicate the message in a clear, concise way that they could understand and recall.
Whoa. I'm so glad you brought this up because I missed this. This is nuts. Always view their errors in the story as partially your responsibility, since somehow you were not able to communicate the message in a clear and concise way that they could understand and recall. Like, that's fucking crazy. Yeah. That's really, I mean, that's just gaslighting in a way. It's like, it's always like they just did a whole section on how you can't always trust journalists. They have other motives. They're biased. Mm-hmm. They're worldly, but also if they make a mistake, that's your fault still somehow, even though all the odds are against you to get any positive press, they're still going to get stuff wrong. And it's kind of your fault still. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, you go.
No, I was just going to, the next page is another really good one.
Yeah. This is, this is one worth making the rounds, you know, if you're going to share stuff about this. This is really bizarre. Common misconceptions. And like, we know how this works, right? Like as XJWs, like they do this in their frequently asked questions section on their website. They do it on the broadcast. They'll be like Stephen Lett did in his anti-apostasy talk a few months ago, where he's like, some people in the media have this crazy idea that we are permissive towards pedophiles. You know, that is ridiculous. Common misconception. And like, well, no, it's obviously not. Nobody thinks that witnesses think pedophilia is awesome. That's not what anybody's arguing. Right. It's that there's an institutional issue with handling this problem. Yeah. And the culture, you know, makes it able to thrive and continue. So it's straw man argumentation.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. There's a couple of things interesting in here. some journalists may be influenced by half-truths or lies in past media reports. And so they very often, or very few, may harbor biases based on personal experience. Oh, and I missed the line. Most journalists don't even know who we are, which I think is just a great omission, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's really interesting. Yeah, like they don't know who we are. It's some common misconceptions.
Yeah.
Well,
the second line there, sometimes opposers will make direct contact with journalists and masquerade half-truths and lies as facts.
So what's really interesting about the way that they teach this section on bias, right, is that a bias is something that other people have, not you. You are obviously unbiased because you're a Jehovah's Witness. They are biased against you. Whereas, you know, something that it should be obvious to everyone is that everybody has biases, and of course, biases. I'm sorry, and of course, like if you are a Jehovah's Witness, you are biased in favor of your own religion. You just don't think that matters because it's the truth. Like I'm not biased in favor of thinking that 2 + 2 = 4. That's just what it is. That's kind of how they view bias. So they say the first step in overcoming biases is to recognize that we all have misconceptions acquired through our association and limited experience. What forms the opinion of journalists toward Jehovah's Witnesses are the same sources of information that influence people in general. News reports, educators, influential family members, coworkers, and friends may present an inaccurate view of who Jehovah's Witnesses are and what we believe. And then, then there's evil people, opposers, who will make direct contact with journalists. And that's true. And like many people, journalists may spend little time verifying the accuracy, which is fucking crazy. Like, yeah, maybe in the like Beaver Hollow Gazette or whatever they're publishing their puff pieces on, that might be true. But no, I don't think that
that was part of that. That was part of that talk with David Splane poisoning the well against any negative reports. He's talking about, journalists, they just don't have time to check all the facts. Or the journalists or the editors will change the story because they're biased against Jehovah's Witnesses. Or the readers of newspapers are religious and they don't like Jehovah's Witnesses. It's like
the clergy will attack them.
Yeah, like back in the 1920s or something, you know?
Yeah, like this isn't Charles Taze Russell days where like some pastor is going to put out a rebuttal to the Jehovah's Witness article in the paper or something. Like it's very strange. But these misconceptions are infuriating. It's all their common straw men, and it's kind of how to. Some common misconceptions. We reject modern methods of medical care. The only people putting this misconception out into the world are Jehovah's Witnesses who say this so that they can just dodge the question of blood transfusion, assumed due to our rejection of blood transfusions.
Yeah.
I never had anybody think that as a witness, that I couldn't have any medicine. I was always just a blood thing.
Yeah.
It's so specific.
I think out of all of these, this could be one that is a misconception. I mean, I see it online every once in a while in comment sections about JW stories. You know,
that's probably true.
I don't know.
But it's also like, no, you're probably right. That could totally be a thing.
These are straw man arguments for all of these things that come up. I think the one that is particularly interesting is the second to last one. We reject secular education, assumed due to our priority on spiritual education. It's like, no, it's not. It's because you have Toni Morris going out there talking about not going to college, and
the better the university, the higher the danger.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, like this, all these are super interesting. We oppose government institutions assumed due to our refusal to participate in the military. Like, no, I don't think that's why people would assume that. I think they would assume it because you foretell that all the world governments will soon be destroyed because they're evil and being controlled by Satan. And in fact, the United Nations was foretold in Revelation and shit. Like that's the opposition to government institutions that I would think people would be concerned about if you read the actual language of the Watchtower. Like what? Jehovah's great wrath is soon going to destroy all earthly governments. That's opposing government institutions. IMO. I'm not a representative of Watchtower either. we believe non-witnesses are inferior, assumed due to our strict adherence to specific moral standards. They do think this, though. Like this, that's a tricky one, because you really do think that non-witnesses are inferior to some degree, don't you?
Oh, of course, because on the very next page, it gets into that with the terminology to avoid.
Ah, yes.
This is internal JW terminology that they have to be careful to not bring up to journalists.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's like, yeah, they're dodging the very obvious ramifications of the things they say all the time.
And it's funny. It's almost like they're trying to throw Jehovah's Witnesses under the bus, and but they don't represent the organizations, because again, they are two separate things. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't the organization, and anyway, that's a whole other topic. But
yeah,
these terms come from the publications of the Watchtower.
Yes.
Regular everyday Jehovah's Witnesses didn't come up with worldly and non-believer and the truth.
Mm-hmm. So. That may, in these terms, it says, may contribute to the impression that Jehovah's Witnesses believe they are superior. While these may be appropriate terms in spiritual context, they will likely be misinterpreted in a media context. Like, this is really interesting. Like, this is an accurate impression. This impression would be accurate. You obviously think that you have the truth. You're the one true religion. Everybody else is worldly. If you didn't think that you were superior to all other religions, you probably wouldn't be preaching about it as much. So anyway, yeah, avoiding like non-witnessy terms, even things like replacing Kingdom Hall with place of worship, not church, mind you, place of worship. Circuit overseer with traveling minister. Pioneer with full-time volunteer minister, and so forth. On the other hand, try not to adopt their language. For example, they may call our Kingdom Halls churches. Feel free to correct them when appropriate, and let them know you just want them to get the facts right in their story. Facts like, don't call them a circuit overseer. Call them a thing that we definitely don't call them, like a lie.
Oh, and man, that particular one about calling a Kingdom Hall a church, if there's anything kind of negative in a news story that refers to a Kingdom Hall as a church, you will see Jehovah's Witnesses come into the comments and like, it's a Kingdom Hall, not a church.
See, like, they don't know anything about us.
And because they used that word, therefore everything else in the story I can throw out as being false.
100%. That's why a lot of, like, ex-JWs who like make videos like myself are like persnickety about that, because I know as a witness, I was so ready to throw away something I was hearing if they used the wrong term. Like, aha, see, fake witness, apostates are lying. Yeah. So I think
I think I'm bummed out when it happens too, because I know
me too.
Yeah, even today we are in the position we are in because we care about the facts.
Yeah. That's the thing that they really don't want to get across. And this is one of the things that I have to assume is key in waking up people who work in this department, is like, this is the closest thing they have to a lie manufacturing department. Just like, hey, we know that we actually say this, but tell them that it's this. And we know that we actually do shun people, but just like tell them that we don't do that. And it's like, it's hard to feel good about the organization if you recognize that you are consciously spinning it to be like more palatable. Like, you're not being honest about what it is. I know that's something that started to bother me and caused me to not want to go out in service anymore, as I started realizing, like, I don't know if I believe this. I don't know if I want to preach this.
Yeah.
Bill by informing. Oh, I see. Is this worth getting into for a minute?
Maybe just a quick comment. I mean, I think what they do in these puff pieces had an impact on my waking up too. As I started to pay attention to what they were saying about the organization, because they put all this effort in and then they don't preach. They don't actually share the message of Jehovah's Witnesses. They show a shiny, happy facade of the organization. They want to present this thing that will hopefully attract people to check them out on their website.
Yeah,
but they don't. It's it's so far from like the Russell Rutherford era of
Oh yeah.
putting sermons in newspapers and lambasting the Catholic Church or clergy.
Yeah,
or
like
whatever.
false religion's preaching this, but we're preaching this. Like, no, like that is not what those Robert Hendricks pieces are like. He has even said that they are a mainstream church in some context, right? Like he or some other person did for the PID. Like, no, pretty mainstream Christian stuff. And they're trying to present the spin that the thing that is unique about Jehovah's Witnesses and why you should join is because it's so happy and shiny and nice. It's just a nice, normal church for your family. Yeah, shiny, happy people. And what was important to me when I was a Jehovah's Witness was that we were right, was that we had the correct doctrines. And other churches teach this thing that's not true, but we have the truth and we can back it up with scripture. And that is just like the complete opposite of anything, like what you were saying. Like the idea of witnesses going to the media to say like, hey, we got to combat this Trinity nonsense. Like, no, they don't care about that at all. It's all like, look at, everyone's smiling, getting baptized, and we bring business to local small businesses.
Yeah. I think one other thing we should get to, and then I might have to get off here in a little bit.
Yeah, same.
In the appendix is the legal and media matters, because you mentioned shunning a few minutes ago.
That's, yeah.
And this one gets into like the legalese. It is on page 110.
I'm just going to look for shunning. Oh, okay. Yep, there we go.
So, I mean, the first part was about legal and media matters, uses of the term members and membership. And I don't know if Larchwood is still watching, but on their Twitter, they definitely have highlighted the change of not referring to Jehovah's Witnesses as members anymore.
Yeah.
Like in the internal publications too. They're you're not a member of Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's really
interesting. So
no, that's a good thing to emphasize. I remember that change started happening when I was PME, and my dad like let me know because he's an elder, and he was like, "Yeah, I got this direction. Like, even if you're like putting on just a get together, not to say that it's like from the Grandview congregation, because that could come back to bite the congregation because it's owned by the branch, blah, 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 blah. And like this just way of getting rid of any like accountability on the account of the actual higher ups. Like this is somehow a religious organization that has no members.
Yeah.
It has no, they're not speaking on behalf of the organization. They're not a representative. They're just some random person who I guess thinks they're a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know. They're not a member.
Yeah. Avoid the implication that brothers and sisters are members or have a membership in a congregation.
Aren't you going to have follow-up questions on that as an elder reading this?
Yeah.
Or anybody reading this?
They're just attendees of the local Jehovah's Witness franchise.
They just go there like on accident every Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, they're not on any official list kept like in a service group, for instance. I don't know. We don't have cards that we send to a different congregation when they change because, yes, they in fact are a member. But the shunning thing, Addressing media inquiries related to shunning. I'm surprised this section isn't a little bigger. When people think of shunning, they relate it to a practice of cutting people off as if a person were dead. Congregational discipline is exactly the opposite. It is a loving act firmly rooted in the writings of the apostles Paul and John. Its purpose is to help someone who has deliberately taken a wrong course to get back on the road to life. Elders are encouraged to continue to show loving interest in those who have been disciplined. We want them back, and we will assist them in that journey if indeed they want to come back. That is hardly the definition of shunning that many have in mind when they hear the word. It's so sneaky. It's so tricky.
I can almost guarantee you that Robert Hendricks wrote that opening part. There is an article that features some ex-witnesses talking about shunning, and he gave a quote about, and he used that exact phrase that they think of it as cutting people off as if they were dead. And that's absolutely not what we do. It's a big one that's gone around a few times. But.
Oh, yeah. Christina has something to say, but she's going to just say it on mic. But she should get a little closer.
Well, now I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, you lost your comment, sister?
I lost my comment, brother.
Was it related to shunning and how they lie about it?
Yes. So I was just going to say, I find it interesting that there has to be a whole PR section about shunning and what to say and what not to say. Most organizations that feel like they have to like say or do something in particular to keep optics, they always have a talking point for this kind of stuff where they know media is going to scrutinize them for. If it wasn't a wrong practice, you wouldn't have to have this point in this PR playbook.
Yeah. Do not speak openly and honestly about how the organization works.
Right.
Say it like this.
Exactly. And if we were being honest with ourselves, if the organization wasn't a cult or more focused on their own optics, I feel like that wouldn't be a necessary point of coverage in that playbook.
Well, that's what started to bother me about the frequently asked questions articles. When I was trying to bolster my faith and be like, let me get back to basics. It was like, but this isn't actually what we believe. Like, this isn't true about shunning. This isn't true about, X, Y, or Z, or like, do we have a bunch of rules about what movies you can watch? Like, it's obviously just completely different from the reality of it.
Well, and I think that if an organization or a religion has to justify whether or not they're a real entity or a cult, I think that that's something that should raise red flags. If the organization has true integrity like it wants its members to have, I feel like you wouldn't be so gung-ho on trying to rectify this idea of cultism and other wrong practices. So
you would own it. Yeah, if it's all based on the Bible and it's what God wants, he would own it publicly.
Yes, exactly. I just realized that she couldn't hear you because I have a wired headphone. But yes, you two are in agreement. I can confirm. That is, I think, huge. That's a huge part of this document.
And I'd like to make one comment on that. Back under the cybersecurity thing, there was a PMO Bethelite who mentioned an update to their computer guidelines coming out. But he used the same terminology that's in this current cybersecurity guidelines. And I'll just read the sentence real quick. It says that a successful cyber attack or data breach could have significant negative impacts on our organization. These may include operational impairment, financial losses, reputational harm, and legal repercussions. So by internal information becoming public, that can harm our reputation. Well, maybe if you just weren't doing anything that harms your reputation, you wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah. Don't do creepy illegal stuff.
The thing that they take issue with is people talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, we don't want them talking about this stuff. The things they're saying that apostates are saying in the news is still stuff that's true. It's just things that are true that they don't want to be part of the public facing aspect of the organization. Just awful.
And I gotta say, you guys gotta work on your cybersecurity because you handle this stuff.
We have this thing on screen right now, to be honest. That did not work. And this video doesn't work either. We have covered a lot of this in great detail. Thank you for joining me, Ron, with not a whole lot of notice, too. You are the guru at all this. Thank you so much. What's your handle on social media? You're pretty much Ron Pimo or Pomo?
Yeah, one of those two, because accounts had the name originally and you can't switch them. Some of them are Ron Pimo. But like Twitter, it's at Ron_Pomo, and then you can find me on Instagram and Threads as well now. So anyway, we're around. I'm around.
You're around.
I no longer have a YouTube account thanks to I don't know who.
Oh,
that's a real bummer. I had some good videos about like the Washington clergy mandated reporting law and all
absolutely
that
you did.
Gone, so
I didn't realize that they took it down. That's
fucked. Zero warning. They said I was in severe violation of their spam policies.
Spam policy? So it's totally Watchtower, right? Like, there's no way.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll talk off mic about that. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
appreciate
you.
Thanks
for having me.
Yes. We also mentioned Larchwood earlier, who was in the chat. They specifically have that quote about shunning, that big lie they just told about how shunning doesn't work like this. It's not like we treat people as if they're dead. Larchwood made some really good posts across their social media about like just putting that side by side with publications that of course say we cut off the person completely, they're spiritually dead, all this stuff. So definitely check that out as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We had tons of people watching. I will probably put timestamps in here at a later point. And I'm I'm almost done editing my next video, which I think has turned out to be really cool and interesting. It was going to be just more of like kind of a fun, frivolous thing, and it turned into something fairly interesting. So thank you for joining, and goodbye.